maybe to you it looks like efficiency, but to me it looked like Gordon was not even trying. There was a relaxed aspect to the whole thing. So maybe it had to do with saving energy, but he made it look very easy.
Yeah.
And he made the path to submission look very easy. So here, the first match against an opponent that again looks bigger than him.
Okay, I'll just give an initial comment here. First, you'll see that Gordon elected to sit to the bottom position. The hardest work in submission grappling is when two athletes take the standing position and joust for takedowns. That's where most of the energy gets burned up. So working on the idea of energy efficiency, let's go out and we chose to sit into guard position and then start looking to access our opponent's back. Because of our opponent's head position, a far side arm drag makes a lot of sense. Gordon's able to beat the arm and quickly get behind his opponent. Now the question is going to be getting into a scoring position. It's too early to score at this point, but we're just concerned at this stage of just energy expenditure, make the other guy work harder than us.
So Gordon did an arm drag to the back and now is working on the hooks.
The hooks are not particularly important here. He'll use it just to get stability on his opponent. But interestingly, his opponent here had an interesting strategy too, which was to occupy bottom turtle position and look to get to the critical 5-minute demarcation point where points begin to get scored. His idea, I believe, I'm speculating here based on his actions, was to keep Gordon at bay in a defensive turtle position until a 5-minute mark occurred, in which case he would shake Gordon off, walk away, and force a takedown battle.
How many people are comfortable in that? And what do you think about the defensive turtle position versus always trying to come back to guard?
The turtle position is the second bottom position of jiu-jitsu. Many people only associate guard position with bottom position in jiu-jitsu. That's naive. There's two. There's guard position and turtle position. Now, as a general rule, guard position offers a much, much greater variety of attacking options than turtle position does. But that's not to say turtle position absolutely can be an effective bottom position. You can work effectively from there.
So there's some case to be made that to wait out 5 minutes, turtle might be...
I mean, I personally think against Gordon Ryan, I admire the fellow's courage. It's not easy. But there was a logic to what he was doing. People think, he just got his back taken so easily, but he did have a strategy. Now, did he pick the right person to use that strategy against? Probably not.
So Gordon is able to break the turtle down, get one hook in. At which point is this becoming an extremely controlling position with Gordon on the back? At which point are you happy with where it is?
At this point, it just started to dawn on me at this point that this guy actually had a strategy, which was to maintain a prone position that he's in now and then shake Gordon off after the 5-minute mark. So once that became obvious, then now I'm starting to look at the clock and how close we are. If we can take it up to 5 minutes. Right now, this guy's only intention is to stop Gordon from strangling him and finish. Okay, now the guy's trying to go up in vertical, freeze it there. Now, do you see how he's taking his elbows off the mat in turtle position? In jiu-jitsu, there's only one reason you take your elbows off the mat from turtle position. That's to stand up. So now it's clear at this point what his actual strategy is. It's to get up, force a standing confrontation, win a takedown battle, and beat Gordon by points. So he did have a strategy. Now, our counter strategy is always based around the power half Nelson. This is a common move in the sport of wrestling, and it's a great way to break people down as they try to stand up.
Gordon's so heavy.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon is a master of it. And
so there's a power half Nelson that Gordon has on him as the elbows are off the ground and knees are off the ground.
He's going to return his opponent to the mat. And as you can see, he's successful in doing so. And now it's clear what the man's strategy is. So I'm calling to Gordon to break him down to a hip. You put a man on a hip, he can't stand up. Gordon successfully does it, traps the shoulder using that one-on-one grip with his right hand, puts him down to a shoulder and a hip. That means standing up is no longer an option for his opponent. Now Gordon goes in, He's already scoring because of the turtle position that he's in. His opponent stays down on his shoulder. Now Gordon's responsibility is to start looking for the stranglehold. His opponent has basic defensive structure. He's disciplined with his chin, keeps the chin down. But Gordon is a master of tying up defensive arms and penetrating under the chin to get to a strangle. You'll see that shortly. There's the trapping of the arm. Notice that no advanced grips were required. It was just a spontaneous trap. There's the penetration of the neck.
So the arm was trapped with the leg.
Yeah. So now he's only got one defensive arm, and he's just taking that away with his left hand, and he gets a one-handed strangle for the finish.
And it looks like not much energy was expanded during that
Very
process.
little. Yeah. So that's as the tournament got off to a very smooth start. Very little energy expenditure, no injuries, and a submission win.
There's a kind of certain look to Gordon that could be interpreted as nervousness. That was an incorrect interpretation?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a...
what do you interpret as nervous behavior?
Well, this is... part of me is trolling, but sometimes on the surface, confident behavior can look like almost like anger. And there's Gordon's face had a vulnerability to it, almost like
when you go to judge confidence, don't look at the face. Look at the extremities of the body.
Yeah,
that's where the truth comes out. You see it in body language, and the further from the face and chest, the more honest the body becomes. Look at the feet and the hands.
Well, he was
that's when you'll see if people are nervous or not.
He was very relaxed in the extremities. That's true. See, you look more confident in this than anything. What are you thinking about? What's going through your head here? Is this the same stuff? Are you intimidated by the two meatheads, one in a suit and tie, or are you not thinking about that at all?
No. For me, it's just about, okay, what's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent? It's just, okay, I've done my job. I've taken them through an extensive fight camp that prepared them for every conceivable situation that they're in. I've run an efficient warm-up. Their body temperature is perfect. The elasticity in the muscles is perfect. My main role when I corner is I avoid what most people do when they corner, which is to be a cheerleader. Most cornermen, they're not cornermen, they're cheerleaders. They're there to express some kind of emotional support to their training partners or their student. Sometimes they're even worse than cheerleaders. They express their own emotional fears as the match goes on. I always believe that 99.5% of the job of the trainer is done, the coach is done, when the athlete steps their foot on the mat. At that point, you shouldn't need me at all. Everything I needed to tell you should have been not just told to you, but imprinted into you. Remember, there's 15,000 people in that crowd. For half of the match, you're not going to hear a word that I can say. There's too much noise. But you'll hear my voice inside your head, because you've heard it so many times over the last 14 weeks. You're sick of hearing it at that point. Mm-hmm. And their program know what to do. So I'm usually pretty confident. I'm also very confident that even in worst case scenarios, they can have effective solutions, because they train those worst case scenarios every single day in the gym.
And so in part, you're there to have a front row seat to analyze what happened so that you can take that to the next match.
The biggest danger an athlete faces is tunnel vision. Sometimes they will hit upon a certain move or strategy and just say, I'm going to go with this, when there's much easier alternatives. But because they're so focused on the alternative they've chosen, they get this tunnel vision and just focus only on that. The most constructive thing the cornerman can do is alert them to the presence of time, which is very important in an ADCC match, because all the scoring is structured by time, and to alleviate problems associated with tunnel vision. That, okay, you're doing this, but if you just did this, it'll be so much easier. So that's the main goal.
So here, this was one of several anticipated matches against the second one against Victor Hugo, which is a very tough opponent. And
again, this was a situation where Gordon was considerably outweighed by his opponent. So the main thing here was efficiency. His opponent elected to avoid the standing position by jumping into guard. So
close
now,
guard, yeah,
Gordon would be in top position this time.
And he has a very good close guard.
But unfortunately, Gordon has very good guard passing. So he's an excellent guard player, very talented. But Gordon is renowned as the eminent guard passer in the world today. So it's a tall order to hold Gordon off for a 10-minute match.
Is there something you can say about this guard passing? Gordon is making it look very easy. It's middle distance guard passing here. And he eventually passes to Mount, I believe.
Yes.
In a very again.
Why don't you run through the sequence where he gets mounted? There's a couple. I believe he gets mounted twice. There's some just back just a little bit further.
Yeah. So he's trying to one arm under.
Yeah, this is a stacking position. Now, normally we always insist on the idea of getting advantageous angle first, controlling the feet and getting angle. But there's a height advantage that Victor Hugo has here, and the length of his legs means that he can play very, very wide with his legs. So getting an advantageous angle might be difficult. In these circumstances, it often makes sense to go right up the middle. Now, Gordon could just go back for legs because Victor Hugo's legs are so far apart at this point that you could easily isolate a leg and attack that. But Gordon wanted to show off his passing prowess. Very often he'll go into a match and just say, okay, I'm gonna show this skill, and he'll often use it as a demonstration of techniques he teaches in instructional videos. So he wanted to show that he could pass to Mount readily on a world champion.
Like this part here, this little step.
Okay, just freeze it right there. Go back one step. Okay, you can clearly see that all of his opponent's defensive frames are built on his opponent's left-hand side. Mm-hmm. So everything is defense on the left. But you can see this comes at a price, and that price is back exposure on the right-hand side. You can literally see his opponent's back on that side. So Gordon's whole game is to place sufficient pressure that the opponent overcompensates on the side of pressure just to set up a quick switch across to the other side. There's the vulnerability. There's the back exposure. His opponent has to put his back on the ground, switch his back. That's a world champion right there on bottom who does a good job of recovering from the first danger. But unfortunately, Gordon has been here 1,000 times and just switches his hips and kicks out.
Little step.
And so you see there's two changes in direction, left, right, in a very short period of time that people find very, very hard to keep up with. Now his opponent builds up to an elbow. He's looking to create more and more space from here, but Gordon counters by just stepping over the hips. It's just when you feel like every move, he's doing the right things. The man on bottom is doing well. He's doing the right things, but the other guy's just been here too many times and is just a half second ahead of every decision being made.
Going up on the elbow, man, Gordon makes it look so easy here with the. It almost seems like Victor's out, but this turning of the hips with the arm over the opponent's back is able to bring him back down, and Gordon takes Mount.
Notice how Gordon is never satisfied with the mounted position itself. He's only satisfied with an extended mounted position where the elbow comes up over the shoulder line.
Yeah, only then does he show. There's a little bit of relief right there, right? Right? There's a little bit of relief.
No, that's the look of a man who's just proved a point.
Yeah, this is very Michael Jordan-like, sticks his tongue out. So, yeah. I mean, there's no points at this stage. He really is going for submission. And then this happens again. Is this the match that wasn't Gordon was not?
This was the only match where Gordon didn't finish his opponent by submission.
Was this very frustrating for him? Was there?
It's actually interesting that when he came off the mat, he was visibly frustrated. He wanted to get a finish, and I think he was more upset about not finishing Victor Hugo than he was delighted by winning his 2 gold medals. So I think that says a lot about the perfectionism of Gordon Ryan. Most people would be thrilled to beat one of the great grapplers of this generation decisively in this fashion, but he was not happy.
And so this is Gordon's 3rd match against Roosevelt Souza.
Now,
another guy who's very big.
This is different because now we're on to the 2nd day. Your listeners should be aware that the event occurs over a 2-day period. So the previous 2 matches occurred on Saturday. Now we're into Sunday. Now this puts a different context on things. If we could just freeze it right there, maybe go back one step. Now we're on Sunday morning. And the idea is that Gordon will be fighting the biggest fight of his life late that afternoon. So now we're into the idea of energy conservation. Okay. It's okay to have 2 hard matches on Saturday because you get to rest on Saturday night. But now Gordon has to beat 2 people back to back and save energy for the biggest fight of his life on Sunday, late Sunday afternoon. So now the emphasis is on a quick win. And you can see Gordon Ryan certainly delivers on this. Now, when you go to entangle your opponent's legs, the basic choice you have is between straight ashigarami and cross ashigarami. In the last 5 years, cross ashigarami has proven to be statistically the more important of the 2. And as a result, many people have forgotten the value of straight ashigarami, based leg locks, and undervalued them. Gordon has outstanding heel hooks from both straight and cross positions, and his opponent was probably more concerned about the danger of a cross ashigarami, left the right leg undefended for far too long, and as a result, Gordon goes into a very classical ashigarami you would normally expect to see from 5 or 6 years ago, and gets a very, very quick finish.
So lifts his opponent.
There's the ashigarami, the entanglement of one of his opponent's legs with 2 of his. Now he's got to turn and expose his opponent's heel. So there's an initial off balance to the left to get a defensive reaction. The opponent overcompensates, exposes his heel, and then there's the submission. There's a danger of a leg being broken here. Gordon has a absolutely ferocious outside heel hook. Until you've felt it, it's quite different.
So the opponent, probably before he even felt the heel hook, felt the control and that it's that he's screwed there. So he doesn't even want to.
Yeah. When someone someone who knows what they're doing gets a bite on your leg like that, you feel it deep inside your knee and ankle tendons immediately, and
there's a sense in which you almost tap. He got a couple of taps. Almost like as if they're early, because the opponent knows.
People came up to us after and said, "This guy tapped early." It's like,
no, he knew.
Yeah.
He knew that late would be a big problem. Got it. So this is within like 30 seconds, within 10 seconds.
I think it was within 10 seconds. So this was a excellent example of someone saying, "Okay, I'm going to conserve energy with a short match. I'm not just going to go down into a neutral position. I'm going to directly pull into a leg lock attack from standing position." You don't see that much in heavyweight divisions. That's something you see more in the lightweight divisions.
So we got to go to the final match of Gordon's within his division, which I think, as opposed to facing Felipe Pena, who lost to Nicky Rod.
Nicky Rod had a great match against Felipe Pena, and past Felipe Pena's guard. I think only the second person in ADCC competition to accomplish that.
I believe with a body lock.
It started as a body lock, but he converted to half guard, top, head, and arm, and passed out of half guard top, chest to chest.
I think I listened to Craig Jones' sort of interview summarizing what happened at ADCC, and he briefly mentioned that Nicky Rod might have the best body lock pass that he's ever felt. So like,
he's very, very good with the body lock.
The way to face Nicky Rod is don't get him they'll let him get the body lock.
But there's a problem. If you stand up, he's a good wrestler. So there's a dilemma there. Like, you have to sit down to guard, but that goes into his body lock. Yeah. But then if you stand up, now you go into his wrestling skill. So it's a great dilemma that he has.
And that's what in facing Nicky Rod, Gordon Ryan here chooses to. If you look at the limbs, there's a relaxation there.
We should also explain some things here. This is a finals match. So instead of being 10 minutes long, it's 20 minutes long with the option of a 20-minute overtime. So this could potentially be a 40-minute match. So you can see why the ADCC people were very concerned about Gordon doing this match, because what if this match had gone 40 minutes and then an exhausted Gordon Ryan has to go out to fight Andre Galvin, who's fresh and ready to maul him.
And on top of that is two former teammates
who know each other's game very well. So there was a high likelihood in most people's minds that this would go the distance, because when you train with each other for years, every single day in the gym, 7 days a week, you get to know each other's tricks. One big problem here for Nicky Rod is that his body lock guard passing game, which is his main weapon on the ground, was taught to him by us. So it's not like we're going to be taken by surprise by it. So that must have been figuring in his mind.
Do you think psychologically for Gordon and psychologically for Nicky Rod, it's tough? So for him, with that body lock, for example, do you think it's tough for him to know what to do here?
It's tough because he would have remembered the outcome of the training sessions. It's hard to go up against a guy who used to dominate you in training and then say, okay, I'm going to beat him in competition.
But can you shut all of that off? Because
it's tough, man. Memory is memory. You can't lie to yourself.
Well, what do you think about competition? Sort of there's been a lot of Olympics bring this out. There's been a lot of big upsets at the Olympics. There's something where people find something in them. I mean, judo is a different sport than grappling.
In judo, there's much more room for upset, because a mistake in judo will have ramifications that will be felt within half a second. Like if you take the wrong grip in judo, you can be thrown in half a second, and there's no recovery. If your two shoulders hit the mat with momentum, it's over. It's done. In jiu-jitsu, you could, especially in ADCC where there's no points in the first 5 minutes, you could get taken down and mounted by your opponent and still win. Like, you can recover from a bad start. In judo, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, you get hit, there's no recovery time. You just get swarmed on. And jiu-jitsu is a much more forgiving sport where you can make a series of blunders and then just recover from them. You make a series of blunders in boxing, you're unconscious.
So that there's the blunder case, but there's also been just people where it's their day. I mean, again, maybe it's romanticizing the notion, but there's been some epic performances in Olympic wrestling, in Olympic judo. As an example, Satoshi Ishii, he had a 2008 performance. We talked about the All Japan and all that kind of stuff, but the Olympics, he destroyed everybody on this path to the Olympic gold medal. And that's when Teddy Raniere was also competing. He got the bronze. So, I mean, that, you could say he was at that time the best in the world also, but some people have a day.
But I think it would be very fair to say he was the best in the world. Think about the people he beat to win 3 All Japan championships. Like, he beat Kosei Inoue, he beat Keiji Suzuki. They were Olympic champions. Like, he was already.
So you don't believe in free will?
No, I don't believe that a person can walk on stage and be better than what they are supposed to be. You have a skill level. It's set in stone. This is your skill level. You don't just go on stage and suddenly your skill level gets here. What you do have is a situation where you have a skill level, okay? Another opponent has a higher skill level, but he runs into confidence issues so that he only uses a small percentage of his actual skills. And then he will fall below someone who is technically lower on the skill scale than he is. That can happen. But you can't just magically acquire skills.
Yeah, but all of us are able to fall in confidence.
Yes. So the question becomes, who manages that fall best? And that can create upsets. Absolutely.
So you don't think Gordon could have fallen in confidence against a former teammate when the pressure is so high?
There was just no basis for a fall to occur.
You said he doesn't have confidence issues. What do you attribute that to?
That's because he never loses in the gym. There's nothing there's no experience that he's had that would make him say, I shouldn't be this confident.
So it's the physical, it's like we talked about mental preparation.
Don't get me wrong. If Gordon lost 20 matches in a row, of course his confidence would drop, because experience is now, there's going to be a psychological dissonance between his experience, his recent experience, and what he believes. Okay, if you believe you're the best in the world, you just lost 20 matches, at some point reality is going to break in. But if you're just never losing in competition, dominating people in the gym, then there's nothing in your experience that would shake your confidence.
Can I ask you this just in a small tangent? Why is Gordon Ryan so good? So we're looking at, you've trained a lot of special athletes. You're a special human being yourself. I could just look at human history. There's a lot of, not a lot, there's some special humans. It seems like Gordon Ryan is one of them.
I totally agree with that.
Can you try to dissect?
That's what I meant when I said I had many students, but only one Gordon Ryan. Like, I've taught many, many people, but they don't all have his skill level. So there's an obvious elephant in the room here. Okay, what distinguishes him from other athletes? Great question. I'll try and give an answer. More than anyone else that I've ever taught, he has a memory for things that were taught to him. He has an ability to recall information that is extraordinary compared with other people in the room. So that's definitely a big part of it. Secondly, he has a pride in technique and technical prowess that will not allow him to settle for anything less than perfection. And he will hate himself when there is imperfection. So there is a love of excellence and a hatred of anything less than excellence. He has an ability to pull the trigger when opportunity arises, which is truly extraordinary. Many people know what to do, but when the moment comes, they back off and they'll doubt themselves. If Gordon sees the opportunity, the trigger pulls every time.
So can I just linger on that
Absolutely.
briefly? There's a few times where he gets a little bit of an advantage and he just chases it to get a big, like with Andre Galvao, you get, it's like there's a dance and you get one step ahead and he's able to chase that, get a little glimmer of the back and he's able to chase that all the way to back control. So that is that kind of the trigger that you're referring to?
Yes. It runs deeper than that too. It's the idea that good athletes are greedy athletes. Okay. When they see a small opportunity, they try and get as big a bite of it as possible. So that the mantra that we always have in training, if you can see the back, you can take the back. And if Gordon sees an inch of your back, that's the direction he's going to be going. If your far shoulder is within an inch of the floor, he's going to be mounting you. If your shoulder comes off the floor, he'll be on your back on the other side. He's a maximalist with opportunity. He's not satisfied with, let me get a good enough outcome. It's like, I want the maximal outcome. So when you combine all these things together, an ability to recall information, which is just far superior to anyone else I've ever coached, an ability to work in the training room towards not just good technique, but excellent technique, the confidence to pull the trigger whenever the opportunity arises, a maximalist mindset where it's never enough to have a good enough outcome. It's always got to be the best possible outcome. And the fifth element, which I believe is very, very important, is extraordinary depth in his technical prowess. in particular with regards his defensive acumen. Everyone looks at Gordon and focuses on his offensive prowess because they see him dominate other athletes. But what they don't see is what I see every day in the gym, where he works from impossibly bad defensive positions. Someone locked in on a full heel hook on his body and a full Jujigatami armbar, in a complete pin mounted with Gordon's two arms stretched out over his head in what looks like a hopeless position. And Gordon will work in these positions. And of course, because it's such a bad position, sometimes he'll have to tap. But he just works so relentlessly in these bad positions that when he steps on stage, he's like, if this guy got the worst possible position on me, there's nothing he could do with it. And within 30 seconds, I could turn it around on him and win this match. That gives his game an overall breadth and depth, which is very, very hard to deal with. It means there's no obvious weak point where you can just say, okay, I'm going to attack him here and use this strategy to beat him. And that goes back to his confidence. That the reason why most people lack confidence is because they fear bad outcomes. Okay, if you're a strong guard player, you've got an excellent guard, but you're terrified of leg locks, and your opponent has strong leg locks, you will shut down your own guard and won't play as freely and well as you normally do because you're afraid of the leg lock danger. You'll pull your feet in, you'll play a very conservative guard game. But if you had extremely adept leg lock defense, then you just play with all the confidence you normally do from guard position. Gordon puts himself in that situation. He's so defensively sound that it translates into his offensive confidence.
When you talk about memory recall, which is interesting, I can't help but see parallels between him and Magnus Carlsen, who's a chess player, who's the number one in the world, arguably the best ever, certainly the best ever if you just look at absolute numbers. Chess has the luxury of having a rating, which you cannot have in jiu-jitsu because it's a game of human chess. Chess is just a board game, so you can actually calculate the probability that you could win. So he has the highest ELO rating ever, and he's maintained that rating. He can, without competing against the number two in the world, he can just prove that he's the number one in the world for many years. Anyway, there's certain similarities. One is ability to recall. So memory recall of information is fascinatingly good. And the other one is not so much a love for perfection, which is something you mentioned, but the flip side of that, which is what you also mentioned, is the hate of imperfection. Now, in the case of Magnus, it almost creates a level of anxiety for him that's almost destructive. So the thing he seems to hate the most is imperfection against people he knows are worse than him. So the thing he loves is competing against people that are close to his skill level, or the favorite is people who might actually be better than him, especially in certain positions. He loves competing against them. He hates competing against people that are still, from the perspective of everyone else, what are called super grandmasters, so top 3 in the world. But he knows he's much better than them. And the anxiety of being not perfect against those people, that's why he, I don't know if you're paying attention, but he stepped away. He's not going to defend his world championship because he hates the anxiety of playing people worse than him.
Interesting. He figures they would somehow make him look bad, or?
No, he just, for him, at least the language he uses, it's just not fun. And he likes having fun. To him, it was fun to win no matter the skill level, the world championship the first time. But then defending it is a very grueling process. It's with classical chess, you play these many hour, it could be 7-hour long games. And on top of that, he really hates the fact that it's only, I forget what it is, but it's single digit number of games. He says it's low sample, so I can't. I would like to play 20, 30, 40, 50 games if we're going to do it this way. But then they're too long. It's going to take too long. So he's really emphasizes the fun of it and the clear demonstration of who's the best. Now, chess is an interesting game. It's probably different than grappling because it's been played for centuries. So there's this giant body of people that are playing it. Like, there's other Gordon Ryans out there. Imagine a world where there's multiple Gordon Ryans or something like that. There's different dimensions, but you have like sharks everywhere. And so there is fun to be had even at the very, 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 very top. But the memory recall is the thing that stands out, and the hate of imperfection, more intense than anybody else in the game.
Fascinating.
That takes us back to the final.
Yes.
So here, Gordon is facing Nicky Rod,
former training partner. And again, the intention here is this has to be put in the context that Gordon will be fighting the greatest ADCC grappler of all time in a few hours after this. So what we're looking for is a quick resolution.
Still
the shortest possible match. Now, there's a complicating factor here. Nicky Rod was a wrestler before he was a jiu-jitsu player. On paper, the way his route to win is via wrestling. He's not going to be able to submit Gordon Ryan, and he's not going to be able to pass his guard. So he has to win by wrestling. In the ADCC finals, you cannot sit to guard. So the approach that Gordon used earlier that we saw on video cannot be used in the finals. Gordon must wrestle his opponent. So on the way out, Gordon and I were talking, and we'd had discussions obviously during the camp, what's the appropriate thing to do here? And there had been some matches earlier in the event where it was becoming obvious that stalling was being heavily punished by referees. So I said to Gordon on the way out, just give him your leg. Let him take you down. Because in the first 10 minutes of the finals, takedowns don't score anything. Or there are no means of scoring the first 10 minutes, but you can't set the guard. That will award you a negative point. So I said, just let Nicky Rod take you down. And he's like, Nicky Rod's not going to take the bait. And I said, if he doesn't, they'll call him for stalling. And so...
And then Craig Jones also commented after the fact, I don't know why Nicky Rod took the bait.
So if we see the start of the match, you see Gordon comes out and offers a leg. Now, it's not that, Nicky Rod is smart. He knows what's happening here. And what's he going to do? Stall for 10 minutes and get like 5 stalling calls put against him? So Gordon gives him the takedown. That way they go to the ground immediately with no effort. And the match now favors Gordon because Gordon is significantly more skilled on the ground. The question is, how can we make this match as short as possible? And as is so often the case, the answer comes back to legs.
So for people just listening to this, Gordon's in an open guard, and Nicky Rod appears to be trying to keep his hips away from Gordon's legs.
Yes, Nicky Rod knows there's a danger here, so he's elected to go to his knees. That will set up his favorite body lock passes, and it will, in some ways, mitigate some of the dangers associated with leg locks. So Gordon's whole thing is, how am I going to get my body weight underneath him? He has a choice between linear entries where he enters between his opponent's knees and circular entries where he inverts and spins underneath his opponent to get under a center of gravity.
Is there a way for somebody to try to get a body lock without giving Gordon an opportunity to get under them?
Well, the body lock is an excellent way to shut down leg lock entries if you can get to the body lock. But you can see Gordon's very, very disciplined with his elbow and knee position. Elbows and knees are working in a position where it's very, very hard for his opponent to access his waist. That shoulder is always either across the hip or in front of the shoulder. his knee is either in front of the shoulder or in front of the hip.
And we're 1 minute into the match, and just if I were to look at the video player here, it appears that the match is over soon. So, so I guess Nicky Rod is facing this. I need to get close in order to do the body lock, and the closer you get, the more danger there is to let Gordon get under you and get the leg control.
Now they're starting to get close here. Gordon's going to try and get his head underneath his opponent, make a circular entry into the legs. He's clearing his opponent's head out of the way by faking the arm drag on the far side, the first move that he used against his first opponent earlier in the tournament. And there's the leg. Spins underneath it. Goes circular, rotates through, gets his body weight underneath his opponent. And now he's going to trip him down to the mat.
Now, I believe Nicky Rod tries to pull out his foot here. And Craig also said that Nicky Rod has gotten used to be able to pull that foot out from anybody, and that he was very surprised at the grip that Gordon was able to actually hold on. So I just want to comment. I'm just parroting commentary.
If you look at what's happening here
from the internet,
if you just freeze it, you'll see that Gordon, like any good leg locker, will always treat his opponent's foot like a knot at the end of the rope.
Yeah.
Just as you slide down a rope, if there's a knot at the end, your hand will catch.
Yeah.
So too with the human leg. When they go to extract by pulling, you just keep your fist as close to your shoulder as possible and narrow the gap. The foot will always catch. The failure that many people have is they let their hand drift away from their own shoulder, and so there's room for the foot to extract. But you'll see Gordon's extremely disciplined with thumb close to his own shoulder, which creates a situation that's very, very hard just to simply pull your foot out.
You're focusing on the knot of the foot.
Yeah. Also, it's very early in the match. There's very little sweat. Both athletes are still pretty dry. Now Gordon has to climb the leg, and now he's already captured his opponent's shoelace. There's the heel exposure coming up. Nicky Rod already knows things are getting bad, and there's the win.
Actually, the comment I made, I guess, was from a little bit earlier. There was an earlier time where Nicky Rod was trying to pull out the foot, and Gordon is able to hold on to the knot, which is interesting.
Now, that was a brilliant day's work by Gordon Ryan. He's had 2 matches against opponents considerably bigger and stronger than himself. And the time of the 2 matches can be measured in, I think, less than 2 minutes. So he's no done injuries. What he set out to do. No injuries, no exhaustion. He's beaten 4 guys back to back, all of whom are excellent athletes with minimal energy expenditure, and he's ready to go on to his super fight.
So, and that's against one of the greatest, arguably, for a long time, really, really up there, jiu-jitsu practitioners, competitors, grappling no-gi competitors of all time, which is Andre Galvao.
Yes, Andre Galvao is almost certainly at this point the greatest ADCC competitor of all time. He won more super fights than anyone else by a landslide.
So if I may just read a few words you've written on Instagram about this match, about Andre Galvao, on greatness. How great you become in any given endeavor will always be assessed by the degree of difficulty of the barriers you had to overcome to get to the top. Just as the lion became king of the jungle, not by living among sheep, but by dominating a world of elephants, hyenas, buffalo, leopards, crocodiles, so too the greatness of an athlete will be determined not just by his own ability, but by the greatness of the athletes he faces. Thus, in his quest for greatness, Gordon Ryan owes a debt to the greatness of his toughest opponent, Andre Galvao. And you go on to sing him praises. So, and that introduces this match. There was an interesting moment. I didn't even listen to the words exchanged, but because I had the great fortune of sitting next to Hydro Gracie, there was this fascinating moment before the match, and I can't believe Gordon is sufficiently relaxed to do this. but he walked up to Roger Gracie and had a discussion. What do you think? You faced Hunter Galal before. What are your suggestions? And they've talked back and forth. They brainstormed ideas like minutes before the match. And it was just a beautiful moment of like, I don't know, like Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan talking to each other, something like that. I mean, I wonder how much brainstorming there really was, and how much was it just kind of like spiritual inspiration or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's more spiritual inspiration. He looks up to Hodger Hodger is a very close friend and mentor of mine. So I always tell my athletes, look to Hodger as your example. This is a guy who always fought for the finish. He tried to express the highest ideal of jiu-jitsu, which is control leading to submission, in every match he was ever in. He even lost matches on tactics against people that he could easily have defeated if he adopted a different tactic, but he always insisted on victory by submission. It defined his career. It made him who he was. And I always try to have my athletes emulate him.
So what was the strategy going into this match? What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Okay, for Andre Galvão, there's a sense in which Andre Galvão had to fight literally the perfect match to win this. Okay, this is a match that's going to be 20 minutes long, and potentially 40 minutes long. Andre Galvão cannot win by submission. Gordon's submission dominance here is just too great. It would be exceedingly difficult for him to win on the ground. Gordon's ground positional game is just too advanced. And so for Andre Galvão, he had to win. If he was going to win, it was going to be in a standing wrestling exchange where most people assessed him as having a measure of superiority over Gordon Ryan. The problem is that it's hard to just keep a potentially 40-minute match off the ground that whole time. It's very, very difficult indeed. So he would have had to fight literally the perfect tactical match to make it happen. And he would have to do it without getting called for stalling points. Gordon has the luxury that if at any point they go to the ground, he has complete dominance. But Gordon too has a problem that he can't pull guard without being penalized. And if Andre Galvão can play this tactical game of forcing Gordon to pull guard and then staying at a distance where he's doing enough action not to get called for stalling, but not so much to engage with the dangerous Gordon Ryan on the ground, then it's feasible he could have won. But it would have been, as I said, it would have required the most perfect application and integration of technique and tactics that he's capable of.
How much intimidation was here? Was there, or are these athletes already beyond that?
When you say intimidation, be more precise.
Do you think there was some degree, if you're just to empathize with Andre Galvão, do you think there's some degree in which Gordon was in his head? Because of the trash talk leading up to certain events, because of the level of dominance that Gordon has shown in this competition and in the months and years leading up to it. Also, the fact that Andre Galvão is also a coach of a large team, so there's some pressure to demonstrate to the team that the old line still got it.
Yeah, I can't speak for Andre, but I know for Gordon, it's hard to be intimidated when you know the other guy has no method of finishing you. It just takes so much pressure off when you just go in there saying there's literally no way this guy can finish me, and there's no way this guy can pin and control me. I can't be finished. I can't be pinned and controlled. The only way I can lose this is if this guy plays a tactical game. So in his best case scenario, I lose by a tactical game. But from Andre's perspective, it's like if I make one screw up, this kid could finish me. Like you can see which way the intimidation game goes. Now, for the start, things get interesting here. We've already said, if you could just freeze it right there, Andre's only realistic path to victory is standing grappling. Okay, that would require him to take Gordon down, presumably multiple times after the first 10 minutes, and not be taken down at all by Gordon. So it's a tall order. It's possible, but difficult. And here's where things get interesting. I told Gordon before the match, just go out and offer him the leg. Same way he did with Nicky Rod. And that's where things get interesting. I must say that I loved what Andre Galvão did at the start of this match. He's a little crazy here. There was just so much energy in the room at this point that his hand fighting got.
For people just listening, there's a bit of hard slapping.
Yeah,
that
that's
could be
fine.
Considered a strike.
It's fine. It's there was just a lot of electric atmosphere in the room. So now things settle down a little bit. But here's where things get interesting. Andre throws the whole tactical game out the window right from the start. He goes for the takedown. Gordon doesn't try to fight the takedown because it's in his interests to go to the ground. But I love this about Andre. He's literally like, fuck you, kid. Like, let's see how good your ground game is.
Yeah.
So he shoots the takedown. And Gordon accepts it, obviously, because it's to his advantage to accept it. But I love the fact that Andre was like, I'm not even going to try and stall this out. I'm just going to bang. There it is. So he's like, okay, let's see what you got, kid. They say you're good on the ground. Let's see what you fucking got. And I love that about Andre. Unfortunately, he's entered the hornet's nest now.
What happened there, real quick? Because that was very...
Gordon immediately went into Ashigarami. Not just any Ashigarami, but Ashigarami was holding both legs. So
he was in open guard and he scooted forward. Oh, wow. That's really nice.
So he splits the legs. Now he dominates the space between the knees. So there's a guaranteed straight Ashigarami here.
He split the knees against Andre Galvão, like effortlessly right there. Wow.
So already Gordon's in his preferred domain now. So he's starting to off-balance his opponent. He's looking for a reaction to get heel exposure. He does get heel exposure. Andre's does a good job of monitoring the feet to try and reduce the breaking pressure. But the brute fact is it's in Gordon's realm now. This is where he has all the advantage. So and the match is going to be 20 minutes of in Gordon's realm. That's going to be a very, very tall order.
Was there a moment here? Again, Gordon's on the legs. Are you impressed that Andre was able to get out from this?
Oh, no, I would expect this. Andre's been preparing for this for 2 years. And remember, Andre has gone against some of the greatest leg lockers in grappling before and prevailed. So he's not naive. You know, he knows how to defend himself. The big problem is that he's going to create defensive reactions which lead into other aspects of Gordon's game, in particular back exposure.
So here, Ashigarami goes to like a single leg type of position where Gordon runs to Andre's back.
Now he has to return him to the mat. The most efficient way to do so is always courtesy of foot sweeping. So he pulls out a Diashi Harai from the back to sweep him down to the mat. And now Gordon's on top. And this is a serious problem for any grappler in the world. Once Gordon gets top position, he's just relentless.
But just getting Andre Galvão's good, just getting the guard back, all of that is great.
There's also a sense here in which Gordon is pacing it too, just to physically fatigue an opponent.
So he's passing the guard, but not rushing it.
Now, what Gordon's looking for here is complete chest-to-chest contact. He's getting very close to it now. And once he gets chest-to-chest on an opponent in top position, past one of his opponent's knees, it's going to be awfully, awfully difficult for an opponent to recover.
What is he waiting for here? Is there's pressure here? Over time, he just wears you out.
Yeah, it's part of a campaign of attrition, of pressure over time. Now he's creating a situation where he's either going to get back exposure or mount exposure. And either way is pretty much fatal when you're dealing with Gordon. Andre elected to go the route of back exposure.
Now Gordon got the body triangle, is on his back. And now it's...
Now there's one physical problem here. That's that Andre Galvão has a neck like a bull. and he has a very short and very thick neck. So penetrating under the chin for a strangle can be a real problem. He also has extremely well-developed shoulders and upper arms. So when the head comes down and the shoulders go up, there's very little real estate to work with regards to your strangleholds. So Gordon, in time, will trap one of his opponent's arms with his legs in order to take away one of those strong defensive arms. There you can see the arm has been trapped, and now he can start working towards the strangle.
And now here is still difficult.
It's still difficult, but things are looking good. There's still a considerable amount of time left on the clock. Gordon is well ahead on points. So all the pressure, all the tactical pressure now is on Andre. You'll see the critical penetration of the jaw.
With the wrist. Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Now Gordon elects for a one-handed strangle.
Wow.
Andre fought very bravely. But a strangle, it doesn't matter how brave you are.
And where does the strangle actually happen in terms of it felt like the strangle was at the blade of it wasn't even fully sunk in.
Yeah.
Where is that like a fulcrum? Is like a one-handed
there's a sense in which once you get underneath, you know the inevitable follow-up is coming.
So it's again the inevitable. You're feeling the inevitable.
It's like to go back to your chess analogy, it's like resigning in chess.
Yeah. In chess, it's considered almost like impolite to let it run out when you understand.
Yeah.
When you understand that death is on the horizon. And there's a lot of respect. That was the beautiful thing with all the trash talk and everything like that. And Gordon always shows respect. I love that about the drama of combat. It's trash talk in the beginning and respect at the end.
I think it's when you feel someone. Andre has great skills, and when you grapple someone, you feel just how skilled they are, and whatever issues you had prior to the match evaporate when you feel that they're just like you. They do the same moves and same kind of concepts, and you see that there's more that bonds you together than separates you, and that's the feeling at the end of most grappling matches.